Ladies and gentlemen, Rebel Scum and loyal to the Empire, this is Sith Talk, the show that talks all things Star Wars movies, Star Wars TV. We have a lot of fun things to talk about today.
Yeah, no
Joining me,
joke.
as always, is Brandon. And joining for the first time in a long time is the Lady of Lore, Lindsay. I'm going to shoot it to you first. How have you been? Are you okay? Where's life? Like, what's going on, and what are you Star Warsing? All at
Dude,
once. I need a one sentence on all of that.
all right, let me just say that having the time to be back here today is just the absolute best. And I have made the commitment, I'm not even going to say like New Year's resolution. I have made the commitment to have a better work-life balance where things that are important to me outside of work, i.e. Sith Talk, can always make sure that there is time for. So hopefully this is not a one and done for a little bit. But yeah, life's been really good, right? Don't get me wrong. It's good. It's just crazy. You know, it's the typical job is never just 9 to 5, but also one of the big updates from I think the last time we spoke is we, being Tyler and I, decided what is the difference really between 2 dogs and 3 dogs. So we got a third dog, and it's so different.
Damn.
It's so different, especially because it's a big, happy 90-pound golden retriever. So he'll be one soon, but he's already like 95 pounds. So that has been a lot of fun. Absolute insanity. But overall, I mean, the big question of what have I been Star Warsing? I mean, I think with the exception of Bad Batch, what haven't I been Star Warsing, right? There's been so many great books. Obviously, the culmination of the High Republic was a big one. I don't think we've even gotten to talk since Outlaws came out. So did my best to get through that as best as I could. I am not a gamer, not to say I didn't love it, just to say I'm not good at it. So that's one thing. But Brandon knows this. Anyone who listens to Don't Bring the Sacred Text knows this. The biggest piece of my year is that my husband has finally started to get into Star Wars. So he is now caught up. He's seen all the movies. He's seen all of Mando. He absolutely loved Andor. So that's been just really, I would say, the last like 6 months or so. The big thing in my household is I get to experience Star Wars with someone who's experiencing it for the first time, which is always fun.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Oh, and my niece turned 4, and if you look on the toy packaging for lightsabers, it is 4+. So I was able to get her first lightsaber.
Yeah.
Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just work life is crazy and lots of podcasting going on and just trying to keep up with all the content, So it's been a little hectic, but always good to come back to Sith Talk and just talk some Star Wars for an hour and hang out with some of my best friends,
Yeah, well, Brandon knows this. There is no work-life balance for me. It's all fucked. But like me and Sarah both work our asses off, and we're definitely in a learning curve right now. I mean, there's just a lot of, I mean, it's what we want, but figuring it out and like both being in charge of businesses is definitely, it can be tough, but it's like, it's something that we are dedicated and don't want to change. So I would like to say that I am moving slower in my work days, meaning I'm trying to be more present with stuff like that, but like the balance is probably not going to be there for a minute. It's just where the head's at. As far as Star Wars goes, I have been tied up in basically just wondering and kind of concerned, but not like in a bad headspace. Like I'm excited for obviously the new Old Republic game. A lot is riding on my like in my head for that, because personally, I mean, Brandon knows this, I've been a little defeated with Star Wars lately. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I get excited about it's gotten canceled for 6 years. So I'm just like, I'm kind of like really waiting on that Old Republic game to kind of flourish to see like if it actually happens. So, but there's so much there's so much like exciting things coming up that we're going to talk about today, but then like also concerns. So with that being said,
You
what
know
no
what I've been doing actually that has helped remind me of my love for certain aspects of Star Wars that I so often forget? I got back into playing the Galaxy of Heroes game. And what I love about that, like, it's obviously not canon or anything like that, but they have such a deep library of characters that you can collect. And it's almost like a nice little mental check and reminder for me when I see these names from the Old Republic, or I see these names from Clone Wars who we haven't talked about so long in the current canon. And one, I can like give myself little trivia, right? And make sure that, okay, I remember this and this is where it's from. But number two, it just like takes you back to those early memories, right? Of the first time you play Knights of the Old Republic, or the first time you watched an episode of Clone Wars that you've just totally forgotten about. So doing that has been such a nice little mental trick to take myself back to why I love this, as opposed to getting distracted with, I'm sure, so much of what we're about to talk about, and just falling into that CNN 24 cycle of news absolute trap.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something that probably I need to get better at, but you know, with that being said, there is a lot of news that we have to talk about today.
So much news, dude. So much news.
So
the fact that when we put this on the schedule, we weren't sure what we were going to talk about, and then 2 hours later, we were like, "Oh, okay, we do."
Yeah.
Well, it finally happened, everybody. Kathleen Kennedy is stepped down from Lucasfilm, and Dave Filoni and Minwell, I forget her last name. I didn't have it pulled up today.
I believe.
Brenner, yes. They have stepped up to be the co-heads of Lucasfilm, and today we're going to talk about pros, cons, everything in between. But yeah, I mean, let's just get right into it. Let's see where everybody's at. We're going to start with Lindsay. Lindsay, when you hear this news, you know, all of it, Kathleen stepping down, those two stepping in, what's the first thing that you're thinking about when you see that news?
Excitement, but also shock. Because I, for as much as I love Dave Filoni, I believe in him, when you think of the storytelling aspect, is the natural for Star Wars next step. But one thing we've never really talked about or realized is that Lucasfilm is so much more than just Star Wars, right? Obviously, that's what we care about. But I'm always so curious, like, what do, the Avatar people think? What do the Indiana Jones people think? And it just seems shocking to me only because it's like, oh, they are now fully invested in Star Wars and only Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. They are only invested in Star Wars, but
that's the thing.
Yeah, you always hear like, but even with like today, like all those announcements, it's like Kathleen Kennedy is finally starting to like come out and make comments. She's like, "Oh yeah, more Indiana Jones is coming," and it's like, "Oh really? Oh really? Why are you talking about this?"
I cannot wait for like her tell-all book. Like there has to be one eventually, and it's gonna be devastating.
I hope she tells the truth. I hope she, like, fair and unfair, like anything I have to say about Kathleen Kennedy negative, I hope she gives it the truth. Like, I did this and then these fucking fans did that, like I hope it's a real book on like how she is, because regardless of now that she's out, it's bittersweet for me in a way, because it's also like there does have to be respect at the fact that she was the first one to do the job without George, and that wasn't, nobody knew what that would have been. So it's like, I do want to say that obviously I'm celebrating that this is news, but at the same time I don't know if I am either. But it's just
yeah, I mean, devil you know.
Devil you know, but also she was the first to do it without George. Brandon, what's the first thing that you think of?
Ooh, is this real? Honestly, like that's what I think of, because we've talked about it for so long, and we speculated about it. We talked about it even on the last episode. kind of talking about, is this just another report, or is this actually finally happening? And so I'm whelmed. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm whelmed. I'm kind of like, all right, let's see what happens. It's definitely interesting having Dave, as the head of creative, which kind of is what he's already doing. But with how kind of I feel like he not necessarily that he divides the fans, but there's a very strong contingent that are big Filoni fans, and then there's a strong contingent that feel like he gets too stuck in the mud of things. And so, creativity to me means doing new things, creating new things. And you can kind of look at Dave objectively and ask, how many new things does he actually end up doing, right? Without somebody else initiating it. Mandalorian was Jon Favreau initiating it and then bringing Dave Filoni in. Rebels continue the story of Clone Wars, and then Mandalorian continued the story of Clone Wars. So like that is a solid critique that even as a Filoni fan, I'm like, yeah, I can 100% understand where you're coming from there. So that part of things, I'm kind of in a weird spot with, because I wanna believe I love the stories that Dave Filoni has told, but I also love the Andors of the world and the Skeleton Crews of the world and things like that. And so I do wonder, what are his projects going to be as head of creative, as the one who's making the decisions as to whether things are getting made or not. But I do overall like the choice. I like the choice of having a creative head and a business head. Divide that up. Let's really focus on the story, and then let somebody else handle the marketing and the toys and all of the books and stuff like that. How much are we spending on these things, stuff like that, and then just let the creatives be creative. Because I think, kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I do think Dave is a creative. I think he might have boxed himself in lately, and that it's something that he can get out of. Lindsay, you look like you want to just tear me apart.
No. It's not even so much like tear apart. I think when I say too, like I was shocked, it wasn't even so much of like the Filoni of it all. It was the Lynwen. That's her name, right?
Yeah,
Lynwen Brenner. Thank you. And that I think is the perfect example, right? Because that to me, I was like, who is this? Where did she come from? What is her role going to be? So it's almost a bit of a red flag to me of how much power is Filoni really going to have? Or was this more of they needed a face to it, right? They needed someone where the fans maybe felt like, okay, this isn't going to be this big of a transition. This isn't something crazy shocking. I feel more comfortable as opposed to having that business aspect of someone we don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I kind of wonder if it should have been shocking. Like if we should have gotten a James Gunn coming into DC thing. I don't know. That's where I'm at with things.
I mean, the pros is the co-CEO thing at Warner Brothers has really freaking worked out for James Gunn, Peter Safran, DC. That relationship is something that is being studied in Hollywood right now because it's really never been done before from that level. And I think it is attractive and it's probably really working out. But with so that is the thing that I really do like because it allows Dave to be good at what Dave needs to be good at. Mm-hmm. He's been doing the creative position for a couple of years now. She has clearly been making him her protege for these years. She sees something in Dave that she wants, and she's the one that brought that in. And she made that happen with Bob Iger. And that's crazy. Like, that's the reality of it. And with Lynwen, she's been in the business for so long, and I have I know that she has been like Kathleen Kennedy's top business person of it. The problem of it all is that I'm having is that I have really flipped my and I'm gonna say this on this episode. We'll talk about these pros and cons. From here on out, I'm giving Dave the chance to to show me after this episode. But these pros or the cons are, I do believe, and I'm willing to, like, nothing Dave has done has said head of Lucasfilm. That is none of that. I'm sorry. I know we love Dave, but that is not head of Lucasfilm, especially when you hear rumors that have been coming out for the last couple of years about his meddling with the Acolyte, the fact that he doesn't like Andor. He doesn't like different Star Wars. Yeah, he brought back Malachor for like one scene in Rebels. And I'm not saying you need the Old Republic. I'm not trying to mistake that. I just have seen that everything Dave has done has been in a certain timeline with certain characters types. And even though I love Ahsoka, like, to be a CEO of Lucasfilm, your show should have won awards. Oh wait, Andor did. Your show should have done this, that, whatever, and it wasn't received like through the roof. As much as I love Ahsoka and I think that show is really fun, cannot wait for season 2. I'm not seeing like head of studio type things. Like, for Kevin Feige to get in, he was a groundbreaking part of the X-Men trilogy that changed comic book movies. That those first X-Men movie, when you see Magneto rolling up to a concentration camp, and that says, oh shit, we can take comic book characters serious. It changed the realm and paved the way for things like the MCU. And I just haven't seen anything but like he's been a student of George and a student of Kathleen. And no offense, but like, I don't know how I feel about that.
That's the problem. I think that's the problem, is that we are still too caught up in this is George Lucas's galaxy, right? Kathleen was his. That. I know, but
I'm just saying it is.
It's definitely a flip from like the past, but there becomes a limit on that, you know? There becomes barriers on that. And I think really the High Republic kind of like showed this to me, because I don't think the High Republic, like, I think the High Republic authors like consider Star Wars sacred, but I don't think they were afraid to like push the boundaries, you know? And especially like Trials of the Jedi. Zach, have you read Trials of the Jedi?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I'm not going to ruin it. No, because it's important that you experience it, but it does have something to say, and those of you who have read it will know, like, it has something to say about the balance of the Force, right? And like, people have avoided talking about that because George never fully defined it, right? And so there's very few people who will tread in that water, and that was really successful. And yet, like, we're getting this plethora of Star Wars content, but we're getting the same things over and over again. You know, it's a lone wolf and cub story every single time. And that worries me for the long-term sustainability of the things, right? Like, Marvel had to break out of what Stan Lee created to be able to become what Marvel is now. That's not a knock on what Stan Lee did. It was just time, right? And Star Wars, for some reason, and maybe it's because, you know, Marvel was, you know, not just Stan Lee, and we have this narrative that Star Wars was just George Lucas, even though it wasn't. They want to just keep everything so close to what George had and what George created. And it's like, we're getting too caught up in the person of George as the mythos instead of the mythos George created as the mythos, right? And so we keep Kathleen Kennedy around for 14 years, 14, 16, whatever it ended up being, because she was handpicked by George. And then she handpicks his protege. And then his protege will handpick the next person, right? And it's like, okay, at what point do we get somebody who comes in and does what Star Wars tells us to do, which is go in and break systems and shake things up? And I don't want, this is going to seem really drastic, but I don't want Lucasfilm to become the empire of the film world, you know? Like, they're supposed to be the scrappy rebels, you know, ILM, figuring stuff out of nothing. And that's honestly one of the things, you know, reading about Lynwen is like, she started in ILM. I'm like, okay, that actually gives me some confidence, because those were some boundary pushers, right? And she had to, if she was doing the business side of that, which I'm assuming just based on, you know, her job now, that she started somehow be connected with the business side of that, she had to figure out how to make, you know, something work out of complete shit, you know, on a shit dime. And so yeah, it's crazy for me to be at this point where I'm like, it's time to move past George, but it's time to move past George. And if that means, you know, it's time to move past Dave, then maybe it is. Because
But it looks like it's not.
No, and that's the thing. And that's why I'm saying I'm not overwhelmed, I'm not underwhelmed, I'm whelmed. I really just want to see how it goes. And if you had asked me 2 years ago, you said, hey, Dave Filoni's going to be head of Lucasfilm, I'm over the fucking moon about it.
I know, and that's why this is wild to me.
And now I've just come down to earth a little bit more, and it's
hanging
just,
out with me too much, buddy.
Maybe Drew's been in my ear a little bit too much, but no, I honestly.
Well, do me and Drew agree on something?
You and Drew agree on that.
This is
funny.
Man. It's happening sooner or later.
That's
Wait,
but,
all right.
like,
So I've got a question for you guys, though,
Go.
and just like trying to keep this in a very like constructive way, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I narrowed it down. Not even narrowed it down, right? It's the most obvious thing in the world. There are 5 things that they are going to be responsible for right now: movies, TV shows / streaming, games, books, and the parks. What do you think is going to be the most important thing for them to focus on? Not for the base fans, right? But just for the future of Star Wars. What's the most important thing that they're going to focus on? And what's going to be, I would say, the hardest one for them to get right?
Movies, full stop, both answer for both of them.
Yeah? Do you think we got to go back to the era of movies?
Yeah.
Yep. I think we got to go back to the era of movies. And
what does that look like if not a Skywalker saga, though?
To me,
I'm worried about. I'm worried about it being a Skywalker saga.
Well, my thing, so this is also like on the upside, is like we talk about Dave, George, whatever. What my positive spin to this, when you look at the cancellation of, I mean, not the cancellation, but just like it just completely just went away. The what was it? It was going to be the Bible origin of the Force. What was that movie?
Yeah,
Dawn of the Jedi.
Dawn of the Jedi. Any of these cool like the Rey thing, like all these things that we were hearing about
the Hunt for Ben Solo.
The Hunt for Ben Solo. The only positive that I could see is Dave Filoni saying, "Look, these things that these scripts that I'm reading they're good, but like Kathy, you're about to step down. Can I have an opportunity to just be able to I will do these things because these are things that you are right. We need to do. We need to tell more stories about like what happened before. Like we need to tell different stories. But can you give me the opportunity to do it my way? Because let's be honest, he's been playing this game for 20 some, or for like since like what, Avatar: The Last Airbender was his last job before that. Like he's been playing this game
27 years
to get to the top, and she's about to do an origin thing of the Jedi. It would make sense if he really does have 20 years into Star Wars for him to say, hey, can you just like not do that? Yeah, this is really going to piss him off. It's going to make you look bad, but you're putting everything into me. Can you allow me to put this origin story together? I can see that being a net positive for him, like looking at and thinking, okay, if we're going to get to these answers that the fans need, I need to think about what they are, because we've been giving them these hit or miss or plot hold filled answers about it, or generalizing or being vague. Like, can you just let me do this? All right, that's my positive, is he has a vision and has always had a vision for this, and he hasn't liked Andor or the Acolyte for many reasons, because he has this vision and we've just been waiting to get it. And these conflicts that these other writers and creators that were signed on long before he got that job of the creative of Lucasfilm, before this head of Lucasfilm, that he needed to refine that in order to tell his vision that will be lasting for the next 10, 15 years if he does his job right. So that's what I could see, like all these bad things the last couple of years being very much, that's the hope I can see in it. Is that this was a transition that he said, please let me do a clean start on this if we're going to do it.
Is it going to be a clean start, though? Because, like, in the Deadline article, it sounded like these projects aren't dead, you know? Like, it was, you know, Mangold has a script that's turned in, but it's on hold. It was...
On hold? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Taika Waititi's has been shelved for now. It's not like...
That's never happening.
It's no, that's the thing. Once these scripts go to the shelf, they're not happening. you know?
And my only positive is that it's because he has a direct vision, and now he gets the opportunity to actually do it.
My pushback on that... Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, what's your pushback?
My pushback on that is Dave hasn't always had a direct vision. He's let the story evolve as it goes. And when the story... He's very much in the George realm of when the story that was told no longer fits the story that he wants to tell, he just changes the story, right? George has done that his whole career, and people forget that. And I don't think we live in a world that is going to be as receptive to that as it was in 1983, when all of a sudden he made Luke and Leia brother and sister. I think we're in a more hypercritical environment than that. And I wonder, like, here's the thing, and then Lindsay, I'll throw it to you. I'm in this place where I feel like I wonder if Dave is able to do that. And at the same time, I believe the person who is most capable of doing that, of making that change, is Dave. So it's a really weird spot to be.
So this actually is a beautiful setup for what I was going to say. So I'm so happy I did not fully interrupt you. Because to your point of, does he have a vision? Does he let it evolve? One of the comments I was going to make is it's going to be so interesting to see how he either stays true to what he's always done, or how he now changes himself to be the face of Lucasfilm, not just for fans, but now for shareholders. And what I mean by that is we've always been so used to, Dave is at like 6-7 different panels at Star Wars Celebration, and he's sharing with us so many things from the past, but he's always been so tight-lipped about the future. Even to the people involved in the projects. You hear the cast of Rebels talk about it all the time with Dave is such a need-to-know basis. I would expect that as Shadow Lord comes out, we're going to hear the same thing. There was always this idea, need to know. Kathleen Kennedy, on the other hand, has always been, as soon as there's like a kernel of an idea, she is out here announcing movies left and right. What is it now going to be? Is Dave going to have to be more forthcoming about certain things? Or is this going to be a new era of us as fans where he's still Dave, he's still present, and he's still kind of this father figure and this familiar figure, but he doesn't really give us enough to go on? I kind of hope it's that latter, and we can now stop getting our hopes up about this. But realistically, because of the shareholders, can he do that?
And that's what I want out of him, is I want him to take the things from George that he learned, and to really take the idea of George standing up to the studios and saying, like, go F yourself, like, I'm going to do this my way. And I think we need somebody who's going to tell Bob Iger, you're wrong about Ben Solo and the hunt for Ben Solo. Like, we can figure it out. We can tell this story.
You are not going to let this movie.
I'm not letting this die. I'm not letting this die.
Wait, so here's the other issue with this, though, is George was doing this when George was putting something out once every 3 years with major breaks in between. Filoni is going to have to do this where the expectation is there's something new coming every couple of months. And that always goes back to, I think, a big, big question, not just for Star Wars, but all franchises, is how much is too much? And I don't
Secret Wars.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Filoni, though, is going to get to stand up and push back as often, because the expectation is always going to be quick and more.
But we're not asking for. Maybe you can find it somewhere on a recording if you're listening and and you got my ass. Come and get me. But like, we're not asking for like 500. Me and Sith Talk has not talked about. We need 2-3 movies a year. We need a movie a year, or every other year. And guess what? We don't need it to be the same fucking plot as the Clone Wars movie with the same fucking hut. and the same fucking rescue mission. And then we also don't need Sean Levy, who's talented, who just did a $1 billion film with Deadpool and Wolverine, has a great gauge on a fan base, and we're getting another lone. Like, it blows my mind that we are getting 2 Lone Wolf and Cub movies. Like, that's literally what we're getting. We're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu, and then we're getting Ryan Gosling and someone else, and they both drive starfighters, and they both go around the galaxy. Now, guess what?
Yeah.
There might be some big revelation to all of it, but it's like, dude, like, where is the gauge on this? And I understand that there's not a lot of popularity for a Daisy Ridley thing in the general audience, even though I'm happy with that. But like, give me some variety, because at the end of the day, it isn't just George's Star Wars. Star Wars means something to everyone, and you can create marketability and you can create good films that people will want to see with a little bit of variety. You can add nuance, flavor. Marvel sells superheroes, but they're all different. Captain America is a espionage political thriller. Thor is a high fantasy film. Tony Stark is a film about a billionaire who is trying to find his way out of a weapons manufacturing. These are all different stories. At the end of the day, they're all superheroes. And at the end of the day, when Marvel had to pivot, and they've already started to pivot with these downslope, they came out of Endgame with Shang-Chi, and all their new characters have not been hitting for people outside of a couple things. So what do? They bring back the things that work. And and now everybody's excited for this Doomsday thing. This thing is like already hyped up to here, when most of the opinions of Marvel is down here. Star Wars, whatever that is, needs to do that. Needs to get that. And I'm not saying throw Darth Vader, Darth Revan all in one thing and make them like give this the cameo burst that we need. I'm just saying, give us some, like, learn your audience, get a gauge of them. James Gunn figured it out. DC was in the fucking slumps, and I was a Zack Snyder guy. And I knew that. And they fixed that with one movie and one TV show, and they've gotten positive feedbacks that are building up. I mean, look at what Warner Brothers just got sold for. It got bought for $42 billion 3 years ago, or 4 years ago. And now it went up for $96 billion. That's fucking insane. So whatever, from business standpoint, creative standpoint, these two need to create a universe or something to where we're not having these conversations. I think that is the most important thing. Maybe not the films, the fan reception, the overall fan reception, and ours. There's got to be a home for Star Wars somewhere.
This is a serious question because I'm not like deep in DC. I never have been. I've always been like a Marvel girly, and that's that. How often is DC putting out new content now, and on which platforms?
HBO Max, they've put out 3 things, and this year was their big kickoff, so they put out 3 things. Last year, they put out Creature Commandos, which was a fun little animated thing, and then they just did Superman, and then they did season 2 of Peacemaker. That's what they did. And now James Gunn,
Penguin.
Oh, sorry, yes, Penguin as well. That was Warner Brothers proper, though. That was not DC Studios.
Okay.
That was Warner Brothers proper.
Okay.
But all that to say, at the most, that's 4 things right there. And that's fine, but James Gunn, his big vision is, all these things that I've announced, we will do them, but when the scripts are ready. When the scripts are ready, we will do them. And he has made that very clear, which is why when he made his initial announcement of things he wanted to do, that's what he said. And that's why when Superman came out, Supergirl got fast-tracked because they liked that script. Other things fell a little bit back. This Clayface thing got fast-tracked because Mike Flanagan was inspired and wanted to write the script and submitted it. These things it's a variety, but it's also, we're not announcing shit until we have, which is Kathleen Kennedy's biggest thing, is like, she just never was like aligned with her directors. And that's the one thing that James Gunn is doing. He's like, we're not going to get ahead of our universe, but we're going to tell great stories with a great variety. And that's just what we need from Lucasfilm. We just need them to like put out some variety and have good scripts.
And I think, again, I'm going to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth on this episode because I feel like split on this, right? I feel like Dave is the person to do that because he has told in like the Clone Wars, he told such a variety of stories that I think if he gets back to that root, right, of there's so many things that are Star Wars instead of this one thing is Star Wars, we have a lot of potential, you know? And that's why I have hope that he's the person that can do that, right? And that now whatever shackles were on him are off. What I think Lucasfilm needs to realize, and I think, again, that Dave is a person, and maybe the person that can do this, is that less is more, right? Star Wars, really any franchise, but especially Star Wars, is best when we have less coming out, right? Lindsay, you and I talked about this with the books, right? It became so overwhelming to keep up with the books that it almost became unenjoyable to read them because all you felt was like, I just got the next one. We've got four
That's why
books
I
that we know
stopped.
about this. We got 4 books that we know about this year. Do you know how excited I am about the fact that we have 4 books coming out this year? Because I'm going to get to go back and reread some of the old books, right? I'm going to get to catch up on some of the stuff I
And they'll
missed.
have different naming structures, so we can actually
can-
keep it all
That's
apart.
that's a whole thing. But like, you look at DC and the intentionality is one thing, right? But the amount that they're putting out is another. And Marvel realized their mistake and self-corrected that. And I just don't know why, like, there's this narrative out there, or not even out there, but I think a narrative within Lucasfilm that we have to produce a ton of content, right? No, you don't. You have to produce a few really great things, right? Give yourself $1 billion movie every year, make a few million off of the books, right? Put out a show or 2 on Disney Plus to keep the subscriptions up, and we're good, right? And like, you look at some of the stuff that they've done, and it just shows that like they're not learning the lesson, like we talk about, right? Like, so that's kind of become the theme of Sith Talk. Well, I
hate that, but it's true.
I hate it, but it's true. But I
Yeah.
do think that like the change now is an opportunity to do that, right? You know, James Gunn was the opportunity to do that. Getting, you know, 2 new heads of Lucasfilm. This is the time to do that, right? It's the time to change policy. It's the time to reset. We've got this year, and then next year is kind of the end of the Kathleen Kennedy era with Starfighter. You know, let Dave do his thing. I think that he is smart enough to be able to get out of his own way. You know, we all have down periods and things when we struggle or whatever. And I do think that like he's kind of struggled for the last few years of getting too caught up in his own thing. And that's gotten him in his own way. If he gets back to those roots of, you know, George coming in and going, I got this crazy idea and you're going to make it work. You know, if he gets back to those roots with creative and allows people to come in with crazy ideas and say, okay, cool, we're going to figure out how to make it work, right? A Dawn of the Jedi movie, you know, a Rey movie, a Hunt for Ben Solo movie, like all of these things are breaking. Like, that's what excites me most about that movie is it breaks the structure that we've talked about that they've gotten caught in, right?
Look, I'm not knocking. I'm excited for that. That would have been great,
but
for sure.
You can't Lone Wolf and Cub that movie, right? And but then this report comes out that like Simon Kinberg said that like 10, 11, and 12 are inevitable. And I'm like, why? Why are they inevitable? Why can't we tell a story?
I'm not saying they shouldn't be inevitable, just like forever away. Like you can still do a trilogy, but like move it 100 years in advance. Remove it. We need to get out of the timeline. That's the biggest thing. Like,
yeah. Or even, you know, like do a Rey movie that is not part of this trilogy or not part of the Skywalker saga.
For sure.
You know, like let that be its thing.
Don't get me wrong. You know, I love Rey, and I really do want the Rey movie. I really want Dawn of the Jedi. I think the reason they say, you know, this other trilogy, 10, 11, 12 would be inevitable is because think about the conversations we have, even as a group, let alone with other people. There is such a strong identity people have around which trilogy brought them in. And so people, I would say, over the age of, oh God, I almost said 40, but that's almost me. People over.
We're getting old, guys.
But I guess just around that, right? I would say anyone in like their 30s, 40s talk about the prequel trilogy because that's what we had as kids. My parents and their friends talk about the original trilogy because that's what brought them in. And now I'm watching it happen with my nieces and nephews and my friends' kids that they feel so aligned with the sequel trilogy. And this is what in 20 years they're going to talk over and over about is, yeah, I remember when I saw Force Awakens, I was 7 years old and it was the coolest thing I ever saw. So I got involved with Star Wars. Eventually they're going to need a property that the next generation feels connected to, and these one-off movies are not going to be it.
And calling it episode 10 is too much of a cash cow.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to have to be something. It's going to have to be a trilogy because you want them to grow up with it, to be excited for it. And quite frankly, even when the TV shows are at their best, they're coming at too quick of a clip to feel that connection with and then stay excited about it for years. It has to be a less is more type thing.
And that's what I'm hoping. So this is another upside with Dave, and I'm trying to find these upsides because honestly, Brandon, your negativity is like actually like everything that is my negative side. Like I agree with you on pretty much everything that you're saying. So for balancing the show, I put it that way. But I do agree with you. Like you're 1000%, like on all your concerns, they're true. The one thing that is a net positive from all of this, and we can all agree on this one, I hope. Kathleen gave a fuck about the movie business, not Star Wars. Not Star Wars.
She was never just thinking that.
She was never a fan. She was never a part of that. Dave Filoni has worked his way up for the opportunity to tell these stories. And the biggest thing that that Dave has to figure out is, are you going to you've been put in this position, dude. Tell your stories. George trained you, but like every student, like Obi-Wan is not a Qui-Gon Part 2. Qui-Gon is Qui-Gon who taught Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan. Now it's time for you to step into your own. Let's see what you do. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and this might sound psychotic, and everybody might disagree with me. If his first announcement is an Ahsoka movie, he can go get fucked because it's like, dude, your one opportunity is to do the character that you've been putting in our way, and not in our way because I love Ahsoka, but like you put Ahsoka in literally anything you're attached to, and if you can, you put it. If that's like all you got is like, oh, I need to make Ahsoka movie, I'm not taking you serious. But if your thing is, we are going to do episode 10, but this is going to be my episode 10. And guess what? It might have this, and this that you don't like, but give me the opportunity. Great, dude. Do it because you're passionate about Star Wars. So even if it is another Skywalker story with yada, 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 yada. Okay, Dave, I'm going to let you cook and see what you do. Because you are at least passionate about it and you're not looking at, just stay out of the fucking algorithms. Tell your story. Tell your story. Stay out of the fucking algorithms and tell your story. You hear all these things about these movie studios and they're literally just taking polls and running scans on like what people want the most, and they change their shit around because of this, that, whatever. You're passionate. Tell your story. Make your story you, though. Not George, not Kathleen. At the very least, I hope Dave Filoni's been playing this sick game his whole life. Just be like, all right, I told you I'd do this, but you can get fucked. I'm going to tell my fucking story. I'm Dave Filoni. I'm rich, bitch, and I'm ready to do Star Wars. Let's go. I hope that's the case.
I do too, and
I hope he's playing Succession.
This is going to be a weird analogy, but go with me for a second, all right? When Eminem went into rehab, right? He was, hold on. I'm going somewhere with this. Okay.
I like this.
He completely, like, if you listen to his interviews, he says he kind of forgot how to rap. Like his brain was so messed up from the drugs. When he made Relapse, he was imitating Eminem. He was Eminem imitating Eminem, and it got a terrible reception because it wasn't authentic. Now, I love Relapse. It's a great album. But that's happened, like it becoming a great album happened like later. Like when it came out, people were like, this is Eminem trying to be Eminem. Like this isn't doing anything new, right? And when Eminem stopped trying to do that and he started making things like Recovery and songs like Not Afraid and things like that, that began to like tell stories or be inspirational or do these new things, he got a second lease on things, right? And then he was able to go back and do the things that were his core, but do them more authentically. And you get Marshall Mathers LP2, you get The Death of Slim Shady, and you get these things where it's like, oh, this is the Eminem we grew up on. But if you actually listen to it, it's really new and innovative, and his rhyme schemes have changed, and his wordplay has evolved, and all of these things. If you get into like the actual like drama or the art of it,
The details.
And the details, and he had to go through that period of imitating who he was to learn how to be who he authentically was. And I hope that that's where Dave is at right now. That right now Dave is stuck in this, like maybe he doesn't even realize it, but this place where like he's imitating George Lucas, right? And now that he's got complete control, now he can go do new things and figure out who this version of Dave Filoni, Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni, is, and make his new rhyme schemes and make his new patterns and tell his new stories, right? And he can do that with the tools that he already has, right? But he has to be the one to break out of it, right? That I think is where we need to get to, where you get whatever Dave's Marshall Mathers LP2, whatever Dave's The Death of Slim Shady is, like that pushes the boundaries, but galvanizes people around it at the same time because it's something so authentic to who that person is and why we love that person. That is what we need out of Dave Filoni. And I think he can do that.
And if he can capture the spirit of like, and then it's like, if he could capture the spirit of Rebels in a new trilogy that feels fresh in a potentially, different timeline or whatever it is, like whatever the new part is, whether it's a new timeline, new galaxy, whatever that is. But if you can capture that spirit of Rebels, because that would be arguably, in my opinion, the closest thing you get to like an original trilogy feel with like these very well balanced characters that are so vastly different in their own ways. Like you have these things. It's like everybody assumes I just want Old Republic, but it's like I love the Rebels too, and it's because there's enough Jedi stuff here, there's enough Mandalorian stuff here.
Okay.
There's layers. It encapsulates a universe that is vastly different, and that needs to reflect in something in Star Wars.
I'm gonna say think about in the spirit of hope, though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Is it possible that Dave's been trying to do this and getting stifled, and now that he's the one in charge, maybe it's not we need this other Dave back. Maybe it's, thank God that added layer is no longer there and he can go make these calls on his own.
Well, because think about what Rebels was, right? Like Rebels told us stories in the dark times. People weren't doing that. Rebels was animated, but it didn't try to do the same thing as Clone Wars, right? It didn't try to do the multi, arc things and stuff like that. Like Rebels did things differently than Clone Wars. And think about the biggest critique of Rebels is when it tried to become too much like Clone Wars, or when it brought in too much Clone Wars stuff that people had to do homework, right? But that was Dave making what Dave wanted to, because that was in that era where it was like, just go play in the sandbox, right? They were letting authors create whatever books they wanted, and they were, coming out with Rogue Ones and things like that. And I think, Lindsay, you're spot on. I think at some point, somebody, whether it was a mandate or somebody just got in his ear and said, hey, remember that thing? That was really good. Do more of that. That's what success is, right? And that's where failure happens. That's where you get stuck in a rut and you just can't seem to get out of it, is when somebody whispers in your ear that like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and you start to believe it instead of believing what you actually want to do. And so, Lindsay, I hold on to that hope, that you have. I really Like, that's why I'm kind of talking, like I said, out of both sides, because I am very torn on what the reality is. And maybe it's Kathleen's tell-all book that we need to let us know that, but like
who the real villains were.
I just
Well,
picture
but
like the Martha Stewart documentary where like Martha's like just being Martha, but now it's Kathleen Kennedy and she lights up like a Camel Crush menthol and she's like, I'm just gonna tell you how it goes.
But I feel like at some point she lost
She's
touch
like,
of reality.
Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
Literally, like, she's like, oh, Ryan Johnson got spooked. The fuck he did? Like, he just didn't have the support to make the Star Wars. Like, you got spooked. He didn't get spooked. Alden Ehrenreich was just, like, not good enough to be Han Solo. The fuck he wasn't. Have you watched that movie? He's so good as Han Solo. The problem wasn't Solo. The problem was the marketing around Solo and the release window around Solo and everything else. So the last thing that like I really want to like harp on
2 days before they were going to announce that an Obi-Wan movie. Oh yeah, man, that hurt. That fucking hurt, dude.
The thing that I realized from this Deadline article is Kathleen Kennedy, to some extent, was out of touch with what was really going on with Star Wars. And my hope is that Dave, because of his passion for it, like you were talking about, Zach, he is going to be so in touch with what's really going on with Star Wars and what's really going on with storytelling, because that's his passion. And Star Wars is the medium. Storytelling is his passion. That's going to break out of things. You know what, guys? I just dug myself out of the grave. I'm excited about this now. I'm back, baby. I'm back, baby.
Let's go.
And what's funny is like I'm not excited about it at all, but I can see the positives from it. Like, or arguably, like if you handed me the choice, I would have loved to see like a Lynwen being announced with somebody completely fresh that isn't from Lucasfilm, or vice versa, somebody from the business sector coming in and letting like the in-house hiring. It is what Lucasfilm does, and that's fine. There must be some reason for it. They have information that we don't. There's a reason they made that choice, but it's just like Kathleen's out. I got what I wanted, and now it's time to just let it fucking be for a second. Give him for me, because there's such a like, I don't feel like I get a bitch about Kathleen Kennedy leaving for years and years and then bitch about Dave before he even gets in the role. That's a me thing, just because I've been spearheading this Kathleen Kennedy thing since like the Rise of Skywalker. I've been waiting for that. So it's like, I'm looking for that positive, because I don't need this to be a Zach habit where we just continuously, now if you do your thing, now if you give a shitty job and you keep doing exactly what Kathleen did, then well, like, dude, like, sorry, that's on you. But like I said, I'm giving Dave an opportunity. It's not what I wanted, but I'm going to find the positives in it. He's passionate. There's a co-CEO to keep him in check. That's wonderful. And the very fact that he's been working in this role his entire life, and every time that he's been met with adversity, like he doesn't know anything about film, he learns film. He doesn't know anything about production, he learns production. He doesn't know anything about the movie business and signing contracts and deals with people. Head of creative. Now, let's see what he does when it's...
I'm going to add a big positive that we have not talked about yet. He does not start things until he knows where it's going to end. Right? This is not going to be a sequel trilogy where it's 3 different people writing 3 different stories separately. The fact that like they were willing to extend Rebels and he was sitting there saying, no, this is the story I'm telling. I wouldn't say they started Clone Wars knowing where it was going, but by like season 3, he knew it was going to end with the Siege of Mandalore. Like, he always has an ending in mind, and I think that's what elevates his projects, and that's what's been missing in so many things under Kathleen Kennedy.
And so this is a thing that like we can't afford to go down a rabbit hole right now, but like this may be something for another time as well too. But like this is one thing that just hit me while you were speaking. So Ahsoka season 1 was super awesome, but how did it end? It ended with an implication that we were getting some big Force revelation. And Dave this is like kind of his first thing that he's attached to is season 2 Ahsoka, on the implication we're getting these big groundbreak. And he did introduce different themes. The fact that there is Jedi out there that do not naturally like just serve light and dark. It's a little bit in between, not gray, but like he introduced new ideas. And the way that show ended, that season 1 was like on the implication that we were getting the Mortis gods, which is not like, for me, yes, it's huge, but like for a general fan base, it should be like you're gonna get some huge mythos revelations, and that might be Dave's like opening statement is like, this is what the Force really is, motherfucker. Season 2 Ahsoka, here you go. We're finally gonna answer some things that we've all been sitting with for a while, and that's his first outing. That is his first outing as Dave Filoni. So that Ahsoka 2 now gets elevated because he's the head and he is the one writing the script.
It's a good point. Like,
yeah,
I wonder how much, way he has to turn things around. He's got Ahsoka season 2 coming out. Starfighter is coming out in 2027. We have Mando coming out in 2026. Like, Mando's going to be on him. Mando and Grogu is going to be on him. Fighter, we'll see to what extent that falls on him. Ahsoka season 2 is on him. So, like, how much room does he have is a question that I don't think we have the answer to, but is important to think about. Is this a 5-year thing?
Say though, Grogu, Mando and Grogu, I think, are on him because he has attached himself to it. I don't see Starfighter though as completely on him just yet, only because of how far it already was before.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know how much we end up putting on it because of marketing and stuff like does it, because it comes out when he's in charge, does that end up falling on him in the eyes of the fan? Like, I don't think it should, but again, like,
people are going to forget
it does fall on him because he was the chief creative officer in all of this, at the time. So like the Mandalorian and the Starfighter thing, that is a thing him, or that's a hit. That's a Dave call. The thing him.
That's a thing him.
That's a Dave call. Like, I mean, so yeah, we'll see. And I could be all wrong. Like Mandalorian and Grogu. Like, I haven't even grasped the thought that the movie could be good. I've made my opinion, and I'm sorry, but like, yeah, my opinion, I can't get changed until I see the movie. My opinion is that it's the same fucking script, and those two movies are roughly the same fucking things that are just going to introduce like vaguely different things with a little more Sean Levy I mean, like, he's now head. He now gets to make all of the decisions versus some of the decisions. So we'll see what you do, man. Do your thing. Do your thing. And, not to knock like or even talk about Lynwen at all, just because like the Peter Safran James Gunn thing, like Peter Safran makes the magic happen. James visualizes it. So it's just like, as long as she can do that, which it looks like she's fucking excellent at that, like damn near fucking flawless at that, because of everything I've read, is she is excellent.
ILM, right?
She is excellence incarnate when it comes to business. That's everything that I've read.
Yeah.
She is the person to run a business end. It is what those two do together creatively with business that adds to it. Because you have to build this brand back. Regardless of what you want, you have to build the brand. And I know this because I'm currently attached to 2 different businesses right now. Brand recognition, brand, what people think of your brand, and who and what makes you stand out versus a million other things is a part of business. So if those two understand the business, which it looks like they both potentially might, there you go. That's the best way you can put it. I hope they understand the business that they've taken over. That's all it is.
Up soon.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say, with that being said, do we want to talk about some of the other things we do here at Clashing Sabers outside of talking shit about Kathleen Kennedy?
Nothing. That's it. That's it.
We just complain. That's what we do.
Are there other things?
If we would have opened up this episode with "Ding Dong the Witch," that'd be awful. I'm sorry, Kathleen, you're wonderful, but like that is what everybody thinks I think anyway. So you might as well just run with it.
Oh man, Lindsay, you tell them what we do.
Yeah, aside from shit talking Kathleen Kennedy, we are not just a podcasting network, but we are first and foremost a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to get as many resources and books into different classrooms and different schools all across the country. We know how important these stories have been in shaping our own lives. We want to make sure that young students all over the United States can also experience this. So if you can, we would love if you could join our Patreon or send a donation. Every single dollar we make goes exactly into this cause. We also understand maybe that's not an option. What you can always do is head over to clashingsabers.net and let us know of any school or teacher that you want us to send some books to.
And that's such an important thing too. Like, we don't send books until you guys let us know who it is. So, you know, we want every listener to find somebody that we can send books to. Like, you know what? Like, we'll figure out the money part of it later. You know what I mean? Like, let's find some people and let's send some awesome books. So, Lindsay, perfect explanation. If you want to keep up with like what we're doing with that, and things of that nature, you know, make sure you're following us on socials, Clashing Sabers, everywhere, TikTok, Instagram. We are on Blue Sky, but I always forget that. So follow us there just so it looks like we do things there. And then, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, or if you're listening to the podcast on like Spotify or iTunes or something like that, make sure you go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe there, and leave ratings, reviews everywhere and anywhere you can to really help people. Sure, hear us complain about Kathleen Kennedy, but really help us put Star Wars books into classrooms.
With that being said, guys, Kathleen Kennedy, not no more.
Always.